Hi, this is Josh Kulp for Daf Shevui. We're learning Masechet Avodah Zarah. This is the video for Daf Tet. And I wanted to address a little bit of the dating issues that comes up in this Gemara. I realize it's a little confusing calculating all the numbers, and I'm not all that interested in exactly the numbers, but I wanted to relate a little bit to some thoughts on the use of how we count the years, from what do we date to. So the Sugya mentions three different kinds of calculations. There is the dating to the creation of the world, and the Gemara talks about that. That's the system that we use now. This is the year 5777, which is Taf Shin Ayin Zayin, which is the common way for Jews today to think about the year. But that hasn't always been, certainly not from the time of the creation of the world, and not even from the time of the Talmud. In the time of the Talmud and through the early period, medieval period, through the Rishonim, we see two other ways of dating the year. One is to Churban Habayit, to the destruction of the temple, and that seems to have been common in the land of Israel, and perhaps also a little bit in Babylonia. And that obviously dates from the year 70, and that is related to in our sugya. And the other one is a more universal one that was used not just by Jews, but was used by Greeks and people all over the world during that time period. In Hebrew, that's known as Minyan Hashtarot, the dating of documents. And in modern English, it's often known as dating to the Seleucid era, because the Seleucids were the inheritors of the Macedonian Empire from Alexander the Great, and that is the common way of dating. It's obvious why that would have been used in documents, because when you use documents, you generally speaking have to use a document that is common, a dating that's common to Jews and non-Jews, because there are a lot of economic interactions between Jews and non-Jews. Jews began to commonly consider their own dating to be from Briat Olam, from the creation of the world, only in the Middle Ages, especially with the move from the center of Jewry, from being in Babylonia to Europe. And I think that the most plausible reason for why we moved that way, well, there's two reasons. One is Christians didn't date from Minyan Hashtarot anymore, from the datings of the Seleucid era. They already began, I believe it was sometime during the 6th century, what we call now CE or AD if you're Christian, to the birth of Jesus, or very close to it. And that's the way the Christians dated. And Jews began to adopt increasingly dating their documents, or at least their Jewish documents, to the creation of the world. And it's an interesting move, because whereas previously Jews would have used internal dating that matched the external dating, in other words, Minyan Hashtarot, the dating to the Seleucid era, was simply a Jewish and a non-Jewish way of dating. The overall dominance of in the Christian world of the Christian way of dating sort of allowed the Jews to make two moves. One is to abandon the Seleucid era dating, which didn't make sense anymore, and then to develop something that was the Jewish year, purely the Jewish year, and that became the common way of dating things. And it led to this bifurcation where Jews would keep track both of their own years, 5777, and the secular year, what we call now the secular year, or you might have called it the year, the Christian calendar. Today is 2017. And it's interesting to trace the use of calendars with the cultural influences on the Jews. You can see where they lived, and also, how much of their world was internal, just purely Jewish, and how much of their world was addressed to the larger outside world. It's an interesting way to trace travels throughout Jewish history. The dating of how we date our documents, what year we consider it, tells a lot about where we're living, the type of society we're living in, and how we consider ourselves.